Good evening, everyone. This is the November 17th meeting of the Climate Smart Kingston Commission. My name is Julie Noble and I am the chair and I am the sustainability coordinator for the city of Kingston. And I am going to call the meeting to order. It's 5:09 p.m. We are meeting virtually, but we will be discussing tonight what is happening with city meetings moving forward. I do want to just announce who is here presently from the council. We have Melissa Iachetta, Jess Coonan, Kevin McAvoy, Roberto Rivera, Dan Smith, Karen Sullivan, and Cal Truman. We don't have any guests, and we do have from the ex officio members, myself from the Parks Department, and Ellie Gartenstein representing the engineering department. So thank you everyone for being here. Hope everyone is doing great. We don't have any guests currently. There was an issue with the Zoom link. I want to just mention, I don't know why this is 2 months in a row we've had issues with the Zoom link. Going to have to look into what happened and hopefully it will not happen in the future. I did just repost on the website this new live link, so anyone who is going to the website to get the link would be able to get into this. But I do apologize to everyone for that technical glitch. We don't have any public, so there won't be any public comment. Are there any modifications to the agenda? No. All right. Then moving on to review and approval of the October 2021 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments, changes, or concerns with the minutes from October? If not, I need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Karen, can I have a second?
You want me to do it?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, Kevin?
Usually I don't because I'm the
Wrote
second,
them?
but yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All in favor? Excellent. Dan and Roberto, are you a yay? I'm going to take no comment as acclamation that he is a yay. Roberto, if you have any concerns, let us know, please. Thank you, Kevin, for putting those together. All right, so moving on to old business. Climate Action Plan draft was presented on November 8th. We had 2 public meetings. So we had a meeting at noon and a meeting at 5, and the draft was released along with the presentation by Cadmus and the city. The draft is currently available at Engage Kingston, and I would highly encourage everyone here to read it. This is the organization that enacts the Climate Action Plan, so this is the organization that will be moving that plan forward. And I would love you to be familiar with it. So, and if Climate Smart folks have concerns or questions or things that want to be addressed before the final, there is still time. So you can submit comments via Engage Kingston or directly to me by November 22nd. So we're accepting comments until next Monday. Some comments have come in so far, not a million, but several have. Actually, probably about 8 different people have submitted pretty substantial comments. And so we are accepting those, and I will be meeting with the Climate Action Plan planning team at the beginning of we'll be compiling those comments next week and then reviewing them to pull together a final plan by the middle of December. And then we will be putting out that final plan. So the draft came out fantastic. It's been a long process to put together the draft. And then just going from text to a visual concept of what it was all pulling together. I was very impressed with how it just visually presented itself. So I'm real happy with that. And so I encourage you all to let me know what you think about it as well. Did anyone have a chance to look at it yet, or come to the meeting, or have any comments about the climate action plan at this point yet?
Julie, Roberto, can you
Hey.
hear me?
Ken,
All
yeah,
right. I did attend 2 of the meetings, and I did review it, but, briefly. I haven't read it completely, but it's amazing piece of work. It also includes the for the future, the solid waste that, it just covered everything. It's very comprehensive. And,
thanks, Roberto. Thank you.
yes.
Anyone else have anything they want to add about the climate action plan?
Who looks it over to decide what of the steps get taken? Do we do that? Does the council do that? Where does the document go once it gets sort of finalized?
Yeah, good question. So right now, sort of from a contractual perspective, Cadmus is on the hook to take the comments that we receive, review the comments with us. We'll put the comments, we'll address which ones need to be addressed or whatever. And they'll complete a final. And that will be the sort of official final document, as in the deliverable of this climate action plan process is that document. At that point, the document would be considered an executive plan. So executive staff, as in not the legislative branch, so the administrative, on the mayoral side of the government, this would be the plan that could move forward, or would move forward. Our plan, the planning team's desire is to have the Common Council adopt the plan as the official climate action plan, making it an official city document with more teeth, basically, through resolution. And we did that to the first climate action plan. And so in January or February, depending on how things go with timing, once the new council, the Common Council is kind of have a substantial changeover. Once the new council members are on board, we will debrief them about the climate action plan process, bring the climate action plan before them, they will review it and ideally adopt it. Ultimately then, it is, even though the Common Council would adopt it, it's still an executive plan to enact. And it's still the role of Climate Smart Kingston Commission with my office to move it forward. So kind of like the same exact way that we've been doing the first climate action plan will be the same way we do this. What do we have money for? Where is their political will? Where is their momentum already? Who's already working on this? And moving it forward in that way. I would guess that pretty early on, this administration is going to set priorities for what things we want to move forward on. And I will also say there's already things in the plan that we are already moving forward on, like CCA and like, shifting the fleet and like the organics plan. And there's like a lot of things that we are already working on. The key is going to be finding the funding for the things that we aren't working on yet. And not just funding, but also capacity. So whether that capacity is within city staff, capacity within the commission, or some combination. What hasn't necessarily been decided yet is if we are going to do a formal implementation plan. We have talked about doing that, but basically a supplement that would say, okay, these are the 20 strategies. For strategy 1, this is what needs to be done. Like, this is how you're going to do it. Apply for this grant, these people, this amount of money, like this is the phasing, this is the timeline. That will ultimately need to be done. I mean, we didn't do that for the first climate action plan because there was like hundreds of recommendations in it, but this has 20. Not to dismiss the value of it, because each of these 20 actions is pretty substantial. But some amount of, I would suppose that the next step within the first or second quarter of 2022 would be some combination of a team putting together a strategic implementation plan for how to get the things done that are in that strategy. So that's when I would say that at the very least, some folks from Climate Smart would be at the table to determine that strategy, if not, you know, fully helping to drive that ship.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So there, you're welcome. So, hey, Betta. One of the things is when you're looking at it, that would be helpful for that process is if we didn't identify directly in the draft and it's valuable or known, if there's an action in that plan that is known to any of you that your network or someone you know or an organization you know or whatever is working on it or has advanced it at all or has thought about it or it's in their, you know, bag of tricks, that would be helpful for moving forward. So because we're not going to pretend that we're starting from scratch here, we want to be able to leverage the other actions that are already happening elsewhere. All right, anything else on the climate action plan? All right. Great. So we'll move on to refrigerants. Last night, a subcommittee of us had a fantastically effective and a fantastic refrigerants subcommittee meeting. And because our administration has expanded outdoor sitting in the middle of the street parking, we were able to sit outside at Rough Draft and have a good meeting. So Dan and Maya and Jess and Ellie and I met and came up with a good plan. Would somebody like to outline it? Or would you like me to? Dan, are you volunteering or do you want me to?
I was going to volunteer you.
Great. So
I think you have the notepad.
I do have a notepad. You didn't get the dang that I was doing that. But anyway, yes, I do have a notepad. So this is what we decided. And this is not all new and fresh. It is things that we've been talking about, but this is now solid, even though it is in pencil and it was written on the outside at Rough Draft. It's pretty darn solid. Our intent is to have the city apply for a Climate Smart Communities refrigerant management grant, which we anticipate is going to be due approximately July 30th, 2022, around that time. So it should be said that we have short-term goals and long-term goals. The long-term goals are kind of what fit into this management plan because it would not actually go into effect until the grant was received, which would basically start contractually the beginning of 2023. So here's the 2023 plan, which would be applied for in a 2022 grant. It is a 5-component plan that as a whole would get to how we would manage refrigerants on an city operational level and a community level. One of the components would be hosting an amnesty month. So right now the city of Kingston charges for disposal of white goods with refrigerants. We would create a plan where there would be 1 month to be determined based on what we're going to evaluate right now is whatever month we see the current highest volume of intake of white goods. We would determine whatever that month is, and we would create that month as an amnesty month. To minimize the additional work for Department of Public Works, we would make it such the case that you would either still bring it to the transfer station or you would, when you would normally get a permit, you would go through the same process you currently go through, you just wouldn't have to pay. So we would do that, and then we would use funding from the grant to pay for the evacuation of the refrigerants, the disposal of the white goods, the trucking of the white goods, and the marketing of this amnesty month. The second component would be education. So that would be some combination of sending home a 2-sided, colorful, flashy flyer about refrigerants, probably a month before this amnesty month. We would do a radio spot. website presence, a section in the mayor's newsletter, possibly an ad in the newspaper. We would create a direct plan with educating apartments and multifamily units that have possibly the volume of several folks at the same time that might be disposing of things, and kind of inspired by what is done at colleges and universities where like all the kids just leave at the same time and suddenly everyone gets rid of their microfridge. And so, you know, to have that volume perhaps at apartment complexes to work with them on a plan. Jess had suggested and sent us some great examples of animated video. So we talked about how refrigerants are like not something we use the word for every day. We don't really even know what it means or how to describe it. And that's with adults. And, you know, we want everyone to be able to understand this. So using some of the funding to hire a graphic designer, artist, and put together like an animated video. And we saw a couple examples of those, by the way. Thanks, Jess. Those were really awesome, what you circulated to us. And possibly also offering a local competition to students for a design or for you know, marketing for a messaging of getting out the word to folks about refrigerants. So funding could go towards that as well, a scholarship or a, you know, a stipend for that, for competition. So that's the second component, which is education. The third is to create a refrigerant management plan. So the refrigerant management plan, which Ellie has started to draft an outline of what it would really include, would go through so many different things, including you know, maintaining or understanding what the inventory is of our refrigerants, creating a schedule for replacement, a procedure for how the procurement would work, a procedure for reporting, you know, the management and reporting the greenhouse gas emissions reductions that are associated with it, and so many other things. So that would be a solid plan that the city operational government operations would use moving forward. The fourth component would be to provide personnel time for basically an environmental asset manager. So similar to what Ellie is doing now, this person would be coordinating the purchasing and the management of any equipment with refrigerants in the city, managing the inventory and the assets, quality control on the purchasing and the disposal and the management, coordinating training and contractors that we might need to use or to have within the city so that we're operating better, monitoring any service and scheduling of service. And that person would put together the annual report and integrate the refrigerants reduction into our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And the fifth component is to create a specific Common Council adopted environmental procurement policy. And we talked about that being initially just a refrigerant policy, but then we broadened it to be, if we're doing a policy about procuring something, really the city does not yet have an environmental procurement policy. So this person would, and Dan actually shared one, a copy of what BARD is drafted for their environmental procurement policy. And so this would have ours would have a refrigerants component to it, but it would also cover things like when you buy paper or goods, whatever, this is how the paper should be. When you buy electronics, this is the kind of electronics we want to buy. When we buy paint, this is the kind of paint we should be buying. When we buy whatever, anything we buy, purchase, creating a policy about how that could be as green as possible. So that has far greater reaches than beyond just refrigerants. That being said, if the grant is like, what, you're taking advantage of us. This is only about refrigerants. We'll say, okay, and then modify. We'll move forward as needed. So we see this as applying for as much as we can get for multiple years. So not just for that year, but a multiple phase process. And it would, for all DEC grants, there's also a match required. So I would see the role of the Climate Smart Kingston Commission to be providing time for research, for helping to track information, gather information, for developing marketing materials, for doing education, you know, all these different things. And so then each of those components would have a sort of a capital expense, and then there would be staff and volunteer time on each of them. And we would think and hope that this would be likely successful. There don't seem to be a lot of communities that are currently creating tons of refrigerant applications for grants. So we hope that we would be competitive, but also understand that we wouldn't even find out about it until the end of 2022. So it would start 2023. So in the short term, which would be next year, this coming year, we would want to do a few things, including hone in on the current systems of how refrigerants are managed in the city more formally. So like really understand what the chain of custody is, so we can know how we do things to know how we need to improve. And also as at least one action at this coming year's Earth Fair, to have sort of an amnesty day at that Earth Fair, so that we can start the process of like, what's it like to bring in, to have everyone just bring stuff at the same time and kind of practice that. So that is what we talked about. And I would love Dan or Maya or Jess or Ellie or all of you to just add in anything that I missed, or correct me, or elaborate on anything that you'd like to elaborate. Did anyone hear anything I said? Did I do okay?
That was a pretty good summary of what we covered last night.
Okay. Okay, so if no one has anything to add, that's what we talked about. And does anyone have any?
Thorough.
Thanks.
Yeah, that sounds like a very thorough, like point by point. I think that sounds amazing. Thank you all.
How much is the grant you're applying for?
It is not currently clear how much the grant is for.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily know. One of the other things that needs to happen in the next 6 months is to sort of put a price tag on these things, to say like, how much do we want? How much do these things cost? How many years do we want to do it for? What amount of time is personnel time will we actually need? What kind of amount of time do we have, you know, with match that we're able to provide? So kind of need to figure that out. That's a long way of saying I don't know yet.
Julie, a clarification. This is for the old type of refrigerants, right? To get rid of the old type refrigerants.
Yeah, the refrigerants that are caused, well, I think that we've talked about that there aren't really any good refrigerants. So this is mostly trying to shift towards whatever is the least bad and eliminate the most bad. This is why we need a kids video. And or use refrigerants as minimally as possible, and also release them as minimally as possible, because there are operations that will need to continue to use refrigerants. So it's not just eliminating them, it's when we are using them, making sure that we are using them properly and disposing of them properly. Can someone else please help me here that is more refrigerant terminology than me?
Well, it's refrigerators and air conditioners that essentially use refrigerants. So I know that the industry, they're coming up with a lot of new kind of less, ozone polluting kinds of refrigerants. So I'm assuming that what we're planning on doing is just getting rid of the old, there must be a lot of air conditioners and refrigerators in the city that still use the old refrigerants. Am I right? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, Dan, you can speak to that. You did the inventory.
If the single biggest thing that the city of Kingston can do for its assets that have refrigerants in them is create a program and accountability within whoever's purchasing, who's hiring vendors to do HVAC work, that, preventing the release of older refrigerants, and making sure that, vendors aren't just, pumping canisters of R22 year over year into a system that's leaking. So understanding Kingston's liability for the release of refrigerants. And then, how do we extend that to the rest of the city, by helping people with an amnesty day where, they don't just get brought to a scrapyard, they get brought to a central location and properly evacuated, and then the refrigerants disposed of properly.
Because it seems to me the problem is when you, like, let's say someone living in an apartment is going to buy a new refrigerator and they need to get rid of the old refrigerator, that's going to have the refrigerants in the refrigerator. So does the refrigerator go to the transfer station, or?
There's a program with Central Hudson currently where you can, they'll come and pick up your old refrigerator so long as it's working condition. And then I think they'll give you $25 or $50 for it.
I think it's 100 for Frederick.
100. The big box stores may also facilitate that in addition to Central Hudson. So there's a pretty good refrigerator take back programs out there right now. Really, but there's not much for, say, window units or dehumidifiers or other appliances that might have it. AC units. It's a pretty daunting task.
Yeah.
And we can't get over the fact that ultimately humanity just needs new lines of refrigerants that are not ozone depleting and have low global warming potential. That's a little outside of our hands, but I suppose we can always keep requesting it.
Right. So I mean, there's only so many things that we can do on a city level. We're not going to, eliminate refrigerants and or design a new type of refrigerant, but we should be at least managing our own operations in the most efficient way possible and facilitating that happening with the community as well. So that's our overall goal.
Especially all city facilities, city buildings.
Right. And Dan and Sean before he left, and Maya, I think, worked on inventorying the current city assets. So we have an inventory of that already. So now it's just, and most of it is like window units. There's a couple city building wide systems, and then vehicles. So we're not talking like mega huge systems. And that becomes complicated also because there are currently, different ways of managing large HVAC systems with contractors and, servicing versus if I just don't want my big, air conditioning, my window here anymore in my office, what we do with that. And there's different procurement processes within the city for how that's managed as well. some things are done more centralized and some things are not. So it's kind of understanding and grasping how that process works, understanding the operations of disposal and evacuation, and through a management plan, ensuring that we have the best practices in place. Anyone else have anything else they want to add to that? Excellent. All right, then we will move on to city sustainability projects. I will say that the parks projects are, by all intents and purposes, complete. And if you've been down to Kingston Point recently, you will celebrate that the new parking lot is not underwater while the rest of everything is. So use the high parking lot now, the high road. But yes, we're thrilled that all our parks projects came together this year as efficiently and effectively as they did. So please check them out. Couple other things I mentioned last month, the community preservation plan and the kayak dock grant were received. We are not in contract yet. That process will take a little while. So we are anticipating getting into contract with both of those projects this winter and moving them forward as swiftly as possible. And a big thing that doesn't fit under any of the other categories is wrapping up our environmental asset manager grant. So Ellie, do you want to just mention the reports that you're working on this to the end of this year to kind of wrap that up?
Yeah, sure. I am doing a number of reports to, bring to completion this grant that I'm working under. There is the greenhouse gas inventory, which is the 2020 greenhouse gas inventory. That is like 98% done. There's just a few edits that I have to do. I have to adjust some of the graphs and, move some text around, but it's pretty much done. Then I'm working on a fleet report, which is a documentation of how our fleet has changed since 2017 or 2018 when the grant started. I can't remember if it's 2017 or 2018. But it's pretty much just like how many cars did we have then, how many do we have now, how many electric did we have then, how many electric do we have now. And it also involves a lot of data analysis and quality control on the Fuel Master data, which is Fuel Master is the software we use to catalog everybody's fuel use. So if I went to the pump and I put 20 gallons of gas into the city car, it would go into the software under my name. And so what I'm doing is I'm just going through and seeing how good people are at reporting their odometers and their vehicle numbers and stuff like that. So there's that. There's the greenhouse gas inventory. There is a benchmarking report. We have a 2019 benchmarking report. We're going to do a 2020 benchmarking report, which is how much energy and how much electricity and natural gas we've used in our city buildings in 2020. And then I think that's it. Those are the three big ones. Let me look at the list I have.
The LED street lighting one and the fleet. Oh, you did fleet already.
Yeah, fleet, benchmarking, greenhouse gas, and LED. The LED report is to understand the impact that the LED conversions have had on our electricity use. So the LEDs in buildings, parks, and street lights, how our energy use has dropped, our electricity use has dropped since we finished that project. It also includes, it's LEDs, and traffic signal removals, because we've removed a bunch of traffic signals in the city, which surprisingly use a lot of electricity and has had a significant impact on our usage. So those are the 4 reports I'm wrapping up before the end of the year to close out my grant.
And I anticipate that either, depending on the timing, either at the December Climate Smart meeting or the January Climate Smart meeting, Ellie will present that information to this group as well, so that we can all kind of see all of that put together.
And Ellie, this is all NYSERDA. Am I correct?
I think it's DEC.
No, it's DEC. Okay, I just want to make sure I don't put the wrong agency in the minutes.
Yeah, that's the DEC Environmental Asset Manager grant.
Yeah, okay.
It started
DEC.
out with Sean.
Right, okay, environmental asset.
So we'll talk about other city projects under other agenda items, but that's probably it for those. Anyone have any questions on any of those things? Okay, then we'll move on to Melissa, Repair Cafe.
So we had our last repair cafe on Saturday. We had about 40 people come, which was good, even though it was raining and towards the end of it, and I didn't think people would come. We had performers, we had 2 groups, and live music, and Rito Kingston lent us equipment for that and tents and all that, which was great. This is gonna be, I'm not sure what to do next, but this is our last cafe out, half outdoors, half indoors. So I'm gonna have to figure out what to do for winter. We have them every other month, so the next one would be in January. Just for COVID, I wanted to keep most of the people upstairs, the waiting area upstairs, and just have a limited amount of people indoors. And now that I added music, I would have to have the music indoors. And I know there's things about COVID and music and droplets, and so it's a lot to consider, and I'm just kind of deciding what to do. But yeah, it was great. There was also a repair Zoom I missed the same day, which I don't know why Sustainable Hudson Valley made this Zoom in the middle of 3 repair cafes, but there's one in Rhinebeck and I think one in Ossining and then one in Kingston. So all of those people could not attend, but there's a Hudson Valley repair cafe Zoom on Saturday as well. So I have to see if there was recording or what they discussed, but in the agenda, it was about next steps. What are they doing with this money they have that they had raised after John passed? I think they have around 8,000 to 10,000 just kind of sitting there. They were thinking about hiring a coordinator, then they decided not to. So yeah, that was in the agenda. So I have to figure out what they kind of talked about at the meeting, but
Great. So as a whole, it was a successful year.
yes, I
Awesome.
would say.
Okay. Anything else on Repair Cafe or any comments or questions from anyone on that? Excellent work, Melissa. You're rocking it.
Oh, thank
really,
you.
really are drawing on the legacy of John, and he would be so
Oh,
proud.
thank you. That means a lot.
All right. Outreach and education or youth engagement. Anyone have anything on that?
I don't have anything this time. I know that, it's already almost the end of the year, but when does our budget, how do budgets work? Or because did we apply for budgeting, or I guess, I know I asked last minute about the stickers last year, and I didn't remember the dates.
The short version of that is there is no climate smart budget. The long version to that is generally in my budget, I do have an educational materials budget line, which could be used for educational materials. Was there something in mind?
I know we talked about maybe doing sushi containers like black plastic and doing another kind of sticker campaign. Or I know we had that whole "Where Do I" pamphlet that went nowhere and I didn't end up finishing.
Yeah.
And I'm actually leaving my current job, and I'll have much more flexibility and time to work on stuff. So I just figured I would circulate back some of the ideas we've had over the past year, but
Yeah.
or
So
two.
I mean, in addition to the sort of educational materials line, I also do have $7,000 in the recycling education line.
Okay.
I would guess we would probably be doing another one of the door things, although I'm sort of sick of doing those. But that could be used for that for sure. I will say with the pizza box campaign, I still have 15,000 stickers sitting right over there in a box. So
Okay.
we could just like Sharpie out the pizza box and change it to a sushi box. I don't know. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with them. So I actually have to follow up. I have to follow up with DPW to see if there has been a marked decrease in pizza boxes because of the slamming job that we've done with getting the word out about pizza boxes. I'll have to report back on that in December.
Okay.
So if you have an idea of something that, let's plan on working on something.
Okay.
But we would basically need to have some kind of budget for what we think that that's gonna cost.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Anything else with outreach and education?
Yes, actually, can you give me screen share permission?
Hey now.
I didn't want to set myself up to fail, but I do have something to show.
You should
Okay.
be-
Great, let's do this. Melissa was just talking about the pamphlet that never got finished. And I put some time into putting it together. So this is a single trifold that sort of talks about climate smart, and it's got some of the info that Melissa gathered, but not all of it. It's also got the sort of blurb that Serena helped put together that I ended up using over at the Maritime Museum, but it's a pretty useful summary, so I kept that. It's got some contact, and then on the inside, how do I switch pages? There we go. It's got some information about reducing energy use and carbon emissions, rethinking. Got sites for donation, we've got energy efficiency, repair and reuse. There's a couple of repair. I haven't added reuse yet. A couple of spots for recycling. So e-waste and household hazardous waste can both go to UCRA. Maybe batteries, something else can go here for recycling, but just a first crack at an actual trifold with some of that information. So it's not just sitting around. So it can, I can send it around for comment, but I just thought I would let people take a look at it today.
Yeah, this is great. You should send this around. We,
Cool.
this would be, you had said 8.5 by 11 trifold,
Yeah, probably.
glossy.
It could be. It's probably, I mean, they're usually glossy, but I guess it's easy to recycle if it's not, so it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. That's
I
the
like
thing.
it a lot.
Okay, so I feel like we've sort of tried to play this game in the past, but so where do we need to go from here?
So I was going from a document that Melissa put together over a year ago. And I think what I would like to do is send out a draft and have people let me know whether they think there's things that aren't on here that need to be on here. It's not exhaustive, it's just some ideas. I figured maybe better to not list every single thing, but give people ideas to get them started. And so if there's things that feel important to add, that would be great to let me know. If there's like typos or if the graphic design looks bad or something, I'm not a graphic designer, so let me know. This, for example, is not centered, whoops. But essentially, I just need
us without it being centered.
Say it again.
I cannot believe that you shared your screen without that part being centered.
No one noticed. So yeah, I could send this out for feedback probably after just a little more tweaking. But I would love to have folks tell me what should be on here that's not on here, whether there's anything that feels spurious that I should remove, and whether there's anything glaringly bad about the grammar, punctuation, graphic design, colors, anything like that.
Great. And the audience being, this would be at events and things, this would be at places, this would be on the website.
Good question. It talks a little bit about, it just gives an idea of what Climate Smart is, and it gives a handful of resources, but I don't know. What would you like to do with it? I could target it better if I had a better sense of that, I guess.
I would say it should be as universally like digestible as possible.
Yeah.
Because there could be a lot of different applications for how it could be used.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add, my original intention was to have it for a Kingston citizen to know all the resources in their community, but also have it be an actual resource with our name on it. Because we, on our tabling, we had a lot of tabling material from other organizations, but nothing from us. But there was stuff on there also about like CSAs, all sorts of, but it was almost too much information, and how to kind of condense it was challenging.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be also targeting, apartment complexes and, new residents, and maybe some, have a stack at the city office, or, just for people, like all people in Kingston. But that was the original intention.
Cal,
Yeah,
I have
really good.
I have another thought too.
Yeah.
Kind of like at the museum where there's a balloon showing like the carbon footprint of different types of transportation. I know this would be more abstract, but just to connect this to climate change, showing somehow that like each of these actions reduces your carbon footprint. And that could be graphically, some like with an actual footprint, or it could be just a description on that second page somewhere, that, or like even that big blue spot that says below, like above join today.
Yeah, let me.
Just to say like each of these actions reduces your carbon footprint. So it's not just like, it's an environmental thing to do, but it's like directly related to, to climate change.
Okay, cool.
I mean, in terms of timeline, would our goal be to get this out by the Earth Fair?
I think that's certainly doable.
Right, okay, so I think that maybe some subset of people should kind of think about like these things offline and chat about this, and what's the most effective thing that we could be putting together that is driving people to the website, making them understand what climate smart is, making them feel like, wow, I want to do something, and like worthy of being on a production that is a piece of paper. Does that seem like a good plan?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Okay.
I think if I can send it out and folks can get back to me by 1 to 2 meetings from now, that would be ideal, because I would rather not. I think the thing that kills projects like this is it takes too long to like, review and edit, and then it loses steam, and I get busy again and I can't finish it or whatever. So I can send it out tonight, and then if folks want to send me their ideas, or maybe tell me them at the next meeting, that would be, I think, ideal. But it can go longer than that if it needs to.
Okay.
We should test out our environmental procurement process with this one too, by finding the most environmentally friendly paper to print it on, so it's recyclable.
And soy-based things.
We have a great green printer that we can use if people are interested.
I was just going to say, Betta's got the hookup.
Awesome. Good work, Cal. All right, thanks for sending that out. And it reminded me of something else. I and Ellie have been working on, with some other folks, we are going to be, as you know, the anti-idling law is going into effect on January 1st. And one of the things we're doing is putting up signs around town that say, stop idling. And in doing so, it was suggested to me by my colleague at DPW that in addition to just saying, hey, people, stop doing this, it would be helpful if we were to also, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, we've got however many hundreds of miles of roads. I'm not going to put up 700 million anti-idling signs, because then we'll just have sign pollution. And I also want to be able to target like where we're doing it. And the suggestion was, why don't you put them at the gateways to the city? But in doing so, also really promote that we are a climate smart community. So, edge in your seats, people, there are going to be big signs now. There might not be welcome to Kingston signs, but there are going to be City of Kingston, climate smart community with climate smart Kingston logo, and don't idle here at the main entrance to all the city roads coming into the city, the 9 entrances to the city. So the Boulevard, 213, Lucas, Washington, Hurley, Albany Ave, 587, Broadway on the south part, 9W. And so this Climate Smart logo is going to be there, the Don't Idle Within Our Town situation is going to be there, and the We Are a Climate Smart Community. And so I'm very, very excited about that. It's going to be happening in January once we put the signs up. So that's happening in those 9 locations, and then a smattering of Don't Idle within like the major idly areas within the city. So keep your eyes out for that. All right. Anything else with education? If not, we'll move on to the Green Business Challenge. Betta?
I don't have anything new, although Mike Darcy did reach out to me today about this. So, but I didn't have a chance to talk to him. So hopefully the next meeting I'll have some news, but I don't have any news right now.
Okay, sorry about that. Great. I did talk to Mike Darcy the other day about kind of coordinating on some things. So hopefully we can coordinate with him moving forward with. Is he managing the person that's going to be brought on? Is that happening? No.
I don't know exactly. I think there's some kind of like committee being established, and
Right. Okay.
you recruit me to that. I don't know.
We'll wait and see.
Yes, I promise I will have more information at our next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have anything on green jobs? All right, zoning updates, Kevin?
Sorry, I was typing. Well, yeah, I was muted. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the zoning charrette just ended last Wednesday was the final day where they did the presentation. Last week, for anybody that wasn't around or watching this or attending it, Dover Cole presented kickoff presentations on the 4th and the 5th. There were uptown and midtown walking tours on the 6th. On the 7th, they did, that was a Sunday, they did Wilbur, Pankaki, and Rondout. Wilbur was actually quite well attended, given that it's kind of out there, in a rural section. It was a very good turnout from that area. Then after that, they started doing stakeholder sessions and open studio workshops where you could come in and look at what they were doing and speak to the consultants from Dover Cole. I think several of us attended different stakeholder sessions, including myself and Julie. Maybe some of you attended other ones. I'm not sure. I know I attended the environmental one, and I attended, there was one they had on historic preservation, and I think I attended traffic, and I don't know, there were a few. The takeaway, I think, from November 10th, the most important thing from the zoning perspective to see where they're going is to look at the synthesis map that they had. I'll put the link somewhere. I think it should be on the link, maybe at Kingston Forward now. I'm not sure. Does everybody have the link to Kingston Forward, or should I put that in the chat?
You can put it in the chat. It's helpful.
Okay, all righty, will do. And that's to be continued. They're going to be working on this for a while over the winter, and then they'll be back, and there'll be further room for comment, discussion, any and all of that. I mean, they are strongly encouraging public participation. It's not a top-down approach. It's like they're trying to do it the opposite, coming, from the people, and then they'll put it into, whatever legalese and whatever you have to do there. So that's the gist of that. And going to get over to the chat and just drop that in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin. Anyone have any input on the zoning process, or were folks able to participate in any of it, or anyone keeping up with it? Any comments about it?
No, thank you for sharing the link. I'll take a look.
Yeah, I was, it happened to fall on a weekend where I was out of town and just incredibly busy, and I couldn't make any of it. So I'm bummed about that, but I plan on watching the recordings and keeping track of everything. But thanks for the update, Kevin.
Yeah, there'll be more opportunities, not to worry.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kevin. That was very thorough. All right, so moving on to renewable energy, CCA and Solarize. Ellie, did you want to give us an update?
Yeah, I emailed Europa to ask her if there are any updates on the Solarize numbers, and she said that they haven't received any like new data from the companies recently, and when they do, they're going to put it into like GIS and then just send me numbers. So I'm assuming we probably have over 40 at this point, but I cannot say for sure. But since we had 39 2 months ago, I'm sure we have 40 now. So that's Solarize. Renewable energy and the rooftop array. We were approved for our grant funding from NYSERDA. So we are currently getting into contract with them. Julie and I had a meeting with a woman named Gwen from NYSERDA last week, and we're going to draft up the contracts, and hopefully, I think she said we can get everything in by, what'd she say, next May? You remember?
Get everything in as in,
Like have it all installed, you know?
oh yeah, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So that's really exciting. So now we have our money. We just aren't in contract yet. But it's a big step forward. And then, was that it? What else is there? Sorry.
CCA, we haven't, I still need to put together the RFP. I know people are waiting. There's just a lot of things that need to get closed out at the end of this year. And I happen to have a lot of projects that are getting closed at the exact same time. So before we can start new things, we have to close out old things. So that's kind of where that is. Does anyone else have other things on renewable energy they wanted to speak to?
I had somebody at the Ulster County Climate Smart meeting ask about the timeline for that RFP. Do you have like a sense of like when-ish, or is that just like you don't really have that yet? It's fine if you don't, they just ask. It's fine if you don't. I'm so sorry.
I hate to say something and then keep locking myself into something, right? So like, how many times have I said to y'all, the organics diversion plan is going to be done by the end of the month. The organics diversion plan is going to be done by the end of the month. The organics diversion plan is going to be done by the end of this month. And now it's like 30 years later, it's not done. So
Understood.
there's just things that are out of our control. So I hope that the CCA RFP will go out within the next 2 months. That's what I can say.
I'll say you're hoping for Q1.
Q1. Hoping for Q1. Thank you, Tom. All right, anything else on renewables?
If anyone's interested, Jen Metzger is going to be presenting tonight to the Marbletown Environmental Commission with New Yorkers for Clean Power's Green the Grid and Electrify Everything presentation. So if you can't get enough of climate action, tonight at 7 o'clock, it should be a great presentation. And I will put a link in the chat to register if you are interested. And if you can't attend tonight, but you have some other, group or affiliation that might be interested in having this presentation brought to you, please let me know, or Cal know, who really helped, create this with us. And I put a link in the chat to register for tonight's event.
Awesome, and thanks for circulating that. It's great to see things like this come together. So I hope you guys have great attendance. All right, so clean energy communities, Ellie spoke to the solar contract already. I do just want to say I think I mentioned it before, but with our first Clean Energy Communities grant, the window project is now done. The LED lighting project in City Hall is done, and the remaining money is going to be going towards LED retrofit for remaining city buildings. I was actually supposed to have an audit with the contractor today to determine the rest of the buildings and how I'm going to spend the $20,000. And he gave me about an hour's notice to say they've been told they can't spend any more in 2021. So I have to wait till 2022 to be moving that forward, which is why things just somehow get out of your control and move on. So I will be continuing to report on that into 2022. Solid waste management. The organics diversion plan is going to be likely done by the end of this month. I'm sorry. And this is a live recording. So for those of you that are watching it live, this is just my life. So actually, Ellie and I have been working with Carla from Hudson Valley Regional Council, and we have a plan. And our current plan is, which is now a better timeline, is that our actual drafting work is going to be done by the beginning of January. The middle of January, it is going to go to you all, to DPW, and to a few colleagues of mine for an internal draft, which I assume is going to be the most critical, particularly from DPW. And we will take those comments and then create a public draft. The public draft will go out in the end of January with a presentation, and then the final draft to be done in February. Those are hard dates. And by hard dates, I mean, those are today's dates. They were probably going to change, but that's currently our timeline. Hudson Valley Regional Council really needs to wrap this up. We really need to wrap it up. So that's where we are. I really am going to look to you all to help to provide critical feedback on the draft. So I look forward to getting that to you all in January. And after that, we will have to determine with this administration how we are going to move that plan forward. And I presume it's going to be a piloted and phased approach for the rollout of the organics plan, but we still need to kind of wait till the final recommendations are together to determine that. Okay, anything on solid waste management else? That's all of our old business. New business. Betta, can I call to you on the New York State Equitable Building Electrification Letter?
Sure. I mean, did people have a chance to read it, or it's still a going concern? This is our beepny.org. I can put a link in the chat. People forgot about it. This is an effort to galvanize support at the state level by Governor Hochul specifically to fund people being able to do energy efficiency, electrification. Buildings are now, according to the latest NYSERDA studies, the leading source of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. So it's really important that we decarbonize our buildings, but we want to do it equitably, make sure that everyone can afford, to participate in this transition. So we have this platform supporting building electrification equity, and it would be great, if the Climate Smart Commission signed on to it. We have 220 organizations that have, and we did submit it to Governor Hochul, but we're continuing to kind of beat the drum about this. And we're going to have a press event in a couple of weeks outside the Capitol in Albany, and just doing other things to keep elevating this issue. So it'd be great to have the commission endorse it. But I understand if you didn't have time to read it. I don't think I sent anything bugging you to, which I should have, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's basically calling for a fund to support, this effort, and to have at least 2 million homes be energy efficient and all electric by 2030, and half of them being affordable housing in disadvantaged communities. By NYSERDA's own kind of data, there we have to be electrifying 250,000 buildings a year. Right now, we're not anywhere close to that. We're only, even like the low income weatherization assistance program is only reaching like 10,000 buildings a year. And that's just weatherizing them, not electrifying them. So we're just like nowhere when it comes to achieving our climate goals in the sector. And so we really need to scale up by many orders of magnitude. And so this is, one effort to do that. And of course, our nation leading climate law also has an emphasis on equity, mandating that 40% of the benefits of this, any kind of investments that we make in the transition to clean energy go to disadvantaged communities. So this is, consistent with what we're mandated by law to do, in addition to it being the right thing to do. So that's pretty much that. I don't know if anybody has any questions, or you just want to endorse it, and we'll add Climate Smart Kingston.
I was
leave it
able to read it pretty thoroughly, and I think it makes sense for us to sign on.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay, Kevin, do we have a second? Cal, is there any discussion about it? Concerns or comments before we go to the vote? All right, so there's a motion on the table to sign on to the letter. Is that what you're moving for, Kevin?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Motion for Climate Smart Kingston to sign on to the letter. All in favor?
Aye.
Maya, Jess, and Roberto, and Dan?
All right.
Yay. Maya and Roberto? You round? All right, well, we have endorsement already with the number of people that have voted, so that's a yay.
So great. Thank you guys so much. I will add Climate Smart Kingston to the list of organizations and keep you guys posted as things proceed on this front. And please sign our petition. We have not only this sign on for organizations like Climate Smart, or institutions, entities, what have you, like Climate Smart Kingston. We also have this petition, which is basically the same language, but just individuals to sign. And we're trying to get to 10,000 by the time that we have this like press event in a couple of weeks. So please sign it. I did the math, and if every organization that has endorsed the platform got like 45 people to sign the petition, we would get to 10,000. And 10,000 is pretty much, the like number that if you get less than that, it's almost, I don't want to say it's not worth submitting it, but you kind of need like 10,000 for the governor, to make an impact. So that's why we're using that number. So please sign the petition and tell your family and friends and colleagues to sign the petition and support green affordable housing.
Great. And so, Betta, do you need anything from me, or you just?
I think I have the logo, so I'll just, well, I don't think, I mean, we do have a form. So if you wanted to make it official, Julie, I'm sure that would be great.
Okay.
And the form is just at this link. I put in the chat to the individual petition, and then here is the link to officially, endorse as an organization or an entity or something.
Okay.
So if you, want to fill that out, that would be great.
I'm gonna have to run to another Zoom meeting. So bye.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
So in demand, Kevin.
No, they're texting me. It's like they're like, where are you? It's like one of those. I have to go.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. I actually, I think we're probably wrapping up pretty shortly anyway. So there's a vote, we did it. Better you know what
Yay.
you need. You're gonna send me a form for me to formally fill out for Climate Smart, and then everyone could do this on their own individually as well, if they'd like. Yes? Great. Okay, awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, anything else on that, Betta, or anyone? Okay. So moving on to announcements, communications, events, and updates. Serena's not here, and now Kevin is not here for public safety, so we're not going to have anything to add there. Ulster County Climate Smart Committee, Betta or Cal?
I attended. I'm not finding my notes from it. It might be that we're meeting back to back since the last meeting of Ulster County, since they're usually, I think that the week's timed out so that we're having 2 meetings before there's another Ulster County meeting. On the Ulster County committee, I did submit my resignation to the end of the year from that committee. So I'm serving out the next couple months, but they will be replacing me soon. So that's the only update I have.
Okay. Now, are one of you guys going representing Kingston? You are, right, Betta?
I've been giving them like an outline of what we go over in the
Okay.
monthly meetings. Yeah.
I think
So,
we've sort of been tag teaming, Cal, right?
Yeah, essentially. I've been trying to submit a written outline of what we've been going over. I took notes today, so I can do that. But
so then moving forward, that will fall to Betta, or do they need someone else?
it will either fall to Betta or someone else can volunteer. You wouldn't have to be an appointed member to go and represent Kingston. I was there as like a liaison from the business community, which I haven't been for over a year. And so they're going to need to find someone who does represent like the business community on that committee. But they encourage folks who are involved in their own communities, Climate Smart, to come and share and trade ideas with other representatives from other communities. So anyone from this commission could attend the Ulster County meetings. And there is a lot of information from the communities that goes back and forth. That's pretty useful. But it's not something I'm going to be continuing to attend.
Okay.
So I would encourage, if anyone else has questions about it, I could talk to you about what the meetings are like.
Okay, so Betta, what do you think should happen?
I mean, I'm willing to keep going, but I would also be happy to have someone else who was interested in representing Kingston attend. And after Cal hangs up the towel, whatever the expression is. So yeah, I defer to the group, you know. I will probably keep going when I can because I can't say no to Manager Green. But yeah, would welcome someone else participating.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to regularly attend the Ulster County Climate Smart Committee meeting on behalf of the city of Kingston?
Don't all jump at once.
Which means Betta, it's you.
Okie dokie.
Okay,
I'll try to live up to the challenge.
I'm sure you'll do fine. Cal, thank you for representing for so long.
Yeah.
And Betta, both of you, really. Okay, so are there any other announcements, communications, events, or updates? Okay. Are there any things in particular we would like to post to social media?
I have a list, but I don't know if we should talk about the email from Emily Hauser. She emailed you on that email, right? About the Facebook page.
Oh,
Yeah. So Emily Hauser ended up posting about the climate action plan. Is that what she ended up posting about?
yes.
Yeah. I missed it because I'm trying to wrap up at my job and things are hectic. And she kind of was like, you need more people posting on the page. The page is not as active as it should be. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. So I don't know. She basically said we need more admins, in her opinion. And she was still an admin, but I mean, I've said this before, but if there's anybody else who wants to help out, otherwise, I have a bullet pointed list of things. It's just, if I'm busy in a particular week, I just can't. But I do have Solarize being extended to the end of the year to add to the current Facebook post. And I had posted about the zoning meetings. I posted about, there was a post about Green the Grid already recently about tonight's event. So I mean, I don't know. If anybody wants to be an admin, I can make you an admin. But I'm not sure how often everyone wants me to post or what, but I'm trying my best.
Every time,
Yeah, I think I'm an admin. Yeah, we could put the Beep NY link up. We
Yeah.
could do that. Also, I want to flag for people, and I don't know if you guys remember TCI, the Transportation and Climate Initiative, but we're doing that Climate Smart endorsed, but we have an event coming up that should be really interesting, showcasing clean transportation projects around the state. And we'll have I think we're going to be having someone, actually, I can't remember his name right now, but the guy who's doing the solar powered boat here in Kingston. I don't know if somebody else knows.
Jack Weeks? No.
Maybe I'm blanking right now on his name off the top of my head, but that should be interesting, and different projects around the state, including VIA, which is the electric paratransit project that Ulster County applied for funding for, that another couple of counties are also trying to do. So, and different interesting kind of greenway projects. So anyway, I put a link in the chat if people are interested, and we could post about that. The whole idea is with TCI that would raise more funding to invest in clean transportation. And here's just some examples of different clean transportation projects that are already in the works around the state. And of course, there's going to be quite a bit of federal funding coming through for clean transportation also. So we could do that. I can post about that, Melissa.
Okay, thank you.
so I want to just chime in that any amount of time that anyone is posting on Facebook is 500 times more than I'm currently able to be posting on Facebook, and I appreciate it. That also being said, there will always be folks that want us to do more. There's only so much any of us can actually do. As you sit here hearing me say, I'll get to that at some point, I'll get to that at some point. There's only so much of our time. This is, though, inherent to Facebook. It's like people sort of want to just see a lot of stuff, but we do what we can do. So I want you to know that I'm not giving any pressure at all to anyone to be doing more, and everything that you are doing, I am appreciative of. That being said, the more we can diversify our portfolio of who's doing it, the less pressure there is on any individual person. So I appreciate anyone who's able to be an administrator and post things, and I do not want you to feel pressure, or that I'm putting any pressure, or that the city's putting any pressure on anyone here to be doing more. It is, any of it is beneficial, in my opinion. All right, so
Okay, I'll just keep posting. I'll continue to post when I have time, which should free up soon.
thank you.
Okay.
And anyone else who wants to, please directly speak with Melissa or Beth. All right, is there any other business? If not, I want to I think we've already checked this, but I want to double check again that our next meeting is December Okay. So I deleted the series in my calendar because the link issue. And now I don't have it in my calendar. Did we decide on December 22nd?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to resend a new series and send a new link. So here's what I think is the issue. I think that I sent out a series with one link, assuming that I could use the same link every time. And I think once you use a link once, that's it. I don't know if any of you are more Zoom efficient than
You can
me.
make what's like a recurring meeting.
With the same Zoom link?
If you can. I mean, I have one for a group that I have to meet with frequently, but I don't know if you have to set it up differently.
Okay.
You could
Maybe,
just send a new link every month if it's been a problem.
which is what I'm going to need to do, which is fine. But at this point, I just deleted the series, so I've now deleted off your calendars, December 22nd, but I'm going to put it back on. December 22nd, 5 p.m. Did anyone's plans change, or will we still have quorum? Is there anyone that knows they're not coming? Okey doke. So then we will see everyone on December 22nd. I wish everyone happy Thanksgiving and all holidays that you may celebrate between now and then. Oh my gosh, Betta, that's the cutest cat ever. What is that thing doing? Hello, everybody. No. Oh. Okay, is there any other business? If not, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
That was Roberto as a motion and Karen seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 6:30 p.m. on the dot. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night, Julie.
Take care.